Season 2, episode 1 of Growing Unicorns. So excited to be here and so excited to see Holly. Welcome back. And then Jay is joining us. He is a director of demand gen on Mattermaid's side. Definitely excited for him to be a part of the conversation. And then we have Bennet Bayer. And so I'd love for you to just intro yourself to the group, to the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of your story.
Well, at 100,000 foot view, I would say I am an emerging technology product marketer.
Okay.
Almost all of my tenures, with the exception of Huawei, have been disasters. And I mean, just beyond it, literally 4 times when I came in on the first day, they said, "We're so excited to have you here. Why did you take the job?" And so a lot of what I had to do was turn around, fix, come up with unique solutions. And that's kind of been my, some people are turnaround experts, some people are growth. That's kind of my niche. Though I've done, just about everything one can imagine. I've, by the numbers, I have conceived, built, and launched 1,500 plus new products, services, applications, driven 4 $0 to $350 million successes, overall about $77 billion in new revenue during my various tenures. The most notable of which was formerly being the global chief marketing officer of Huawei in China.
Amazing.
So I did the first mobile app store, the world's first digital camera. I've got 27. Whoop-de-doo.
So you've done a few things, just a little bit.
A little, yeah. I've been very lucky and blessed.
That's amazing.
I've actually seen a few big Chinese companies recruiting Silicon Valley executives and Huawei and Xiaomi and all that. How did you come across the Huawei job, and like what was your thinking process and what pulled the trigger for you to take that job?
Money. A friend in the Department of State actually suggested I not take the job, but I'm sorry, feeding my family is more important. I was working at a company called Avnet, which I don't know, most people are not familiar with, but they're a $35 billion technology distributor. But unlike Ingram Micro or Tech Data, they are 10 times more profitable. However, they don't pay terribly well. They'll pay, they'll hire someone like us, but give you $1.50, $1.25, plus commissions on the growth. So my peers there were all very highly qualified executives. So when Huawei came and offering, 4 times the base, okay, I can be bought. The interesting thing is that I learned very quickly that though you're hired into a senior position, there was a lot of impacts with culture, and they really don't want the expats there, particularly middle management, but they're a necessary evil. And so what they try to do is hire someone in and get everything they can out of them within 6 months and dump them. So that I lasted 3 years, I'm quite proud of. And they now have 3 people, all Chinese, doing my job, but that was the gig. So I don't have any regrets.
And your scope was the global business, or like any business that's outside of China?
Now, I was in the global chief marketing officer. I was in charge. I had a staff of 47. All right, this is insane. I had a staff of 4,700, dotted line over 60,000 engineers. I had 947 different product lines under me. So time management was and including managed services, because in the world there are 309 big boy carriers and mobile operators.
Yeah.
Huawei runs 179 of them. So if you're Telmex, Carlos Slim or Vodafone, it's a Huawei guy in a Vodafone shirt. And that that is their core of their business.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Because when I was in college, Huawei was one of the top employers on campus. Everyone wants to get a job at Huawei, and it's incredible that you're managing such a big business, especially coming from Silicon Valley, an American background. What were the cultural differences or management differences being a global CMO versus a CMO for an American company based in here?
I would cite three things. First off, the board. The board are not technology people. They're business people. And so the discussion is around finance and return on working capital. Should we launch more cloud services? Should we build a new storage array? No. Or can we buy another vineyard in France and make more money? Where are we going to get the best bang for our, for the money we make every year? That's the discussion, which is quite unique. The second one is the way Huawei is run. As you're probably aware, there are three main technical universities in China. That's Huawei. And if you look at Huawei, they rotate the CEO every 18 months. The reason why is generally the hiring comes out of one of those three universities. And so it's not age, it's not sex, it's kind of like high school, it's the clique. If, Corinne, if you are my boss, you get promoted, I go along with you. In our clique, and that's why Mr. Ren rotates it so that no one clique is in charge. And culturally, that's a pretty interesting dynamic. The other one is, and the most impactful was that they were dysfunctional in that middle management, senior management wants the expats, recognizes a need, and there's a niche. Middle management despises that because they want to go do their own thing. The problem is that they yelled and screamed at the troops, who are generally kids. Can't do that. And so I would sit in meetings and the grand poobah would yell and scream and we're going to do da, da, da. And you look around at the faces and you could see the wheels turning. And afterwards, Holly, I'd come up to you and say, well, what did you think of what the big boss said? Let's go to lunch. And the whole thing was, look, in 10 years, you are going to be the boss. Do things different. And that I am most proud of having a small impact on changing that part of culture.
I see. And so Bennet, you said a little bit earlier, your core area of specialty as a CMO is often coming in kind of as this like fixer or turnaround role, or businesses that need a turnaround to some degree. I'm curious, is Huawei another reflection of that and the trials that you're talking through now? Is it kind of the growth arm? Is it the like kind of rekindling or fixing the challenges? I mean, how would you describe coming on to Huawei?
Huawei was the other side of the coin, which is you want to go faster.
Okay.
I got there, they were, doing, I think 32 billion, but 11% year-on-year growth. So I took them to 56 billion and 17.9% growth. They wanted to go faster. So, and in doing that, managing a large organization, you have to break things very often. Most notable, my first board meeting, they expressed a desire to increase the enterprise business. Okay, that's for a technology company. That's a no-brainer. How many people do we have? Oh, we have 24,000 people around the world. Okay. And I just started laughing. And they're like, what? And I'm like, do you understand that? You see, Huawei sells Huawei. This was the problem. And so, use humor to soften the blow. I said, look, IBM has 4 million salespeople. Hewlett Packard has 3.5 million. Cisco, 3 million. They got more people knocking on doors. Why? They've got VARs and system integrators. They sell through other people. So maybe we should think about it like a little math formula. Hardware plus software plus network plus smart people equals something unique. And that started the whole, oh, maybe we need to partner with somebody. So, for example, to grow the cloud business exponentially, I went and cut a deal with the SAP because we had a product, Fusion Cube, that could make HANA run 8 times faster than the Cisco VCE for a third of the cost. So now I've got every SAP guy in the world selling Huawei kit. And Huawei gets the support business. I mean, it was, you follow, you know, you got to break it down. That little math formula works quite effectively to make your point.
And CMOs, they say, have the shortest tenure in all the executive roles, on average 18 months. And I would assume that as a new CMO, you know, either in Huawei or other places that you've been, you have to build trust really fast. What are some of the things you do in your first, you know, 90 days or as a new CMO to build trust and credibility within the company?
It depends on the situation. Huawei was the most fun, again, because I had this cultural problem that I wanted to fix. And I knew this going in, the middle management problem. So I came, the first day one, they had an all hands meeting, literally 5,000 people in an auditorium. Here's Bennet Bayer, Grand Poobah, yada, yada, he's done this. And I get up there and say, hi, you know, guess what? I'm wrong half the time. You have to figure out which half. Which no Guilo has ever come in, White Devil, has ever come in there and fallen on their sword and done that. And it's like, look, kids, I'm going to question everything you do, but you have to question me. Together, we're going to go figure it out. And so, you know, and that's part of the role of being a chief marketing officer is it's kind of like being the manager of a sports club. Every lineup is different. And so you have to have the experience and without the fear to go and try and do different things depending on what your resources are and what the situation is. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is be really open and encourage open discussion and questioning the authority.
It's not about you. And again, I am very blessed in that, okay, humility. My wife is a real marketer. She did food in her entire career. All right. It's not like talking about the difference between the 3270 and the 4690 router. Ooh, you know when the color of the package on the grocery shelf actually means something. It's a little more challenging. And so very often at various points, she would often remind me, sometimes not so gently, but quite correctly, that who do you think you are? You're in marketing. Marketing is building bridges between whomever. It's whatever you need to do to drive the business. And marketing to me, kind of a nice segue into what is marketing. Marketing to me is an iceberg. Mm-hmm. The 10% above the water that everybody sees, that's the digital, the PR, the MarTech, the communications, that's all the fun, fluffy stuff. 90% is under the waterline that nobody sees. It's going to see somebody and getting cooperation and buy-in. And, you know, it's how do we build it? How do we make it? How do we support it? And then how do we make money? Wash, rinse, repeat. How do we improve it? And that's not glamorous or sexy, but that's marketing. And you got different problems every day because it's constantly tweaking to make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like marketing is, you know, doing half of the work to help your sales team, you know, make sure that conversation is clearly understood, right? So whatever this person is buying, they know that they're buying that before they even come to the table. And I think that's definitely shifted big time in B2B marketing, where it's like, with the internet, with research available and companies having to kind of answer to the customer to have information more readily available, is that most people are doing the research right before they even talk to someone to buy.
Before a salesman knocks on the door.
Yeah.
And that is a major problem. And I'll compound it. I would say this kind of, as we're segueing into what is marketing according to Bennet. To me, marketing is how do you sell smart? So, and I think it's very difficult to be in marketing if you have never carried a bag and sold. You have to be the best salesperson in that organization. Absolutely. And one, to have the credibility, and your team needs to be able to do that as well. So they need to, ride with sales and spend time. And any good young marketer, I would encourage them to carry a bag for 6 months at least, just to gain that experience. It's invaluable. The best lesson I had when working at Casio, my first real marketing gig, the Japanese teach two things: go and see, don't sit and read a report, and ask why 5 times. And if you think about it, that works pretty well today.
Yeah. I think a question that I had when you were talking about like the role of the CMO was, I think, especially for people that are like, that is their trajectory or that's what they've claimed they want to do. I think there is confusion, and maybe it's different if you're at a larger company or if you're at a smaller startup. And I think we have enough perspective here to really like dig into this. But I think some people are of the mindset of like, if you're going to be a CMO, like you better know how to go and like check out Google Analytics and pull a report from there and like gain insight. Or there's the other camp where they're like, you need to hire the best Google Analytics person and make sure that person is on your team, right? And have like smarter people surround you. And so I'd just love to hear from the group, like what camp do you sit on? Are you in the middle? Like, what do you think?
I would say none of those.
Okay.
It was kind of funny. I think it's the Kellogg School of Management or Northwestern. They talk about what should a CMO be. They should have at least 10 years experience. Yeah, I'd agree with that, because I would say in more than one organization, doing more than one thing. Ideally, both B2B and B2C. And let's not forget, 67% of business is B2B. If you add B to B to B, like mining or forestry, and they feed into somebody who builds something, who makes something, who then now you're up to 84%. So that's only leaving 16% true someone marketing to an end customer. Now think about, and here's my prediction, within 5 years, 99% of digital marketers will be out of a job. Anything that can be repeatable, we can program a bot to do it. So, and the problems with, a CMO should be able to understand a Google report. More importantly, and again, the title is bandied about much too generally. Startup is a CMO. Actually, I think, again, world of Bennet, it's only for public companies. And certainly only for companies that are more than one trick pony. You've got to have multiple product lines, multiple categories. And if you're going to be a chief, you got to have people under you. And that's just a baseline. Does that make sense?
Holly, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm curious, Bennet, just to quickly follow up on what you said. What is the CMO's job, right? How do you actually spend time, spend your time? What do you focus on?
Where do we make money? Where can I spend my time and make the most money in the shortest amount of time with the least effort? And I learned this at Unisys. So when I developed Moso, I split my team. I hired people smarter than me, and I split my team, and I became the referee. I split the product teams into how we made money, not by product category. So lifestyle, enterprise stuff, mobile payments, and infrastructure. And they each had their own CTO. I controlled the factory. I had like 3,500 engineers. So what are we going to make? All right, Karina, you're in charge of lifestyle. Jay, you're in charge of enterprise. Holly, you're in charge of mobile payments. What do you want to do that will give us the best bang quickest? I'm referee. You guys have to come up with a business plan. You're the vice president of whatever, Karina. What do you want to do? How can we do it? And together we will vote. Yeah, I know I'm controlling and pulling the strings, but I control the to-do list and what the factory is going to work on. And we're going to agree as a team as to what is the best bang for the least amount of effort and the least amount of money. And that created a very competitive culture. Again, going back to how Rome became Rome. You understand that, yeah?
Is there
American culture and business is very much based, I would argue, on first Greek and then Roman culture. Rome was this tiny little city. Who cares? What they did is they elected 2 councils. 2 guys. They're going to be in charge. I'm going to be in charge today. Holly's going to be in charge tomorrow. We have 1 year. Basically, Holly and I have to go train up an army, go lay siege to Carthage, beat them, grab all the loot we can before Jay and Karina get to come in next year, and they'll take over all the spoils if we don't do it quickly enough. That made the Roman commanders incredibly aggressive. And that, if you think about Rome as the founding culture for Western civilization and a lot of business, that's the foundation. And so I applied that to my team, and from Unisys on, you know, through Huawei and other tenures, that became the way I would work. I'd have teams empower them, let them go, but here are the rules. That have freed me up to go and get them what they needed to do. Do they need some president of transportation to agree? And I'll give you an example. At Unisys, I came up, or the team came up with putting RFID tags on the baggage. Pretty cool idea, yeah? Huh? Oh yeah. Hey, tell you what, Karina, you're the president of transportation. Look what we can do. Will you do that? Will you sell that? No. Huh, okay, well, why? How about if I let you have all the sales credit? No. How about if I let you have all the sales credit and it doesn't cost you anything? Yeah, okay. All right, but I tell you what, we're going to keep a shadow set of books because we both work for the same mothership, right? So I just want to, at the end of the year, show how much I helped you grow your business. That's what a CMO does.
Yeah.
It's behind this. What do you need to do and get your, you set a high level strategy, empower your team, and then what do you need to do? Where do you need to insert yourself to be successful?
Got it. So I hear a lot, Bennett, this overarching theme of a CMO kind of being the glue between a lot of different departments to enable growth. And
I would say that is the job of marketing. It is, you set, and the most efficient organization I ever worked for was the most dysfunctional, nastiest, stab you in the back, and was Infonet. And they were the global reach for every big telephone company in the world. And if you were AT&T and you left the US, you were on the Infonet network, largest data network. And so I was marketing, and in my business area, I was in charge. I set strategy, the goals, everything. Sales had to agree to the goals. They had to buy in. Their bonuses were, and operations was given a budget slightly under achieving that. Mm-hmm. So it made it incredibly efficient. And if you wanted to sell, if you were the head of sales and you wanted to add a T1 span over the Atlantic, you would have to increase your bonus threshold to do it.
Hmm.
So it made everybody very cognizant of what's going on in the rest of the company and how what your decisions impact. And it put everybody's backside on the line.
Got it.
Very efficient, but at the same time, it was the most dysfunctional, nasty, stab you in the back place I've ever encountered.
That's certainly tough. And as we flash forward now, one of the themes that's been popping up for me a lot in discussions and just hearing about CMO's line of work in 2022, if we go off that thought that it's really the glue, I've been hearing that a lot of Fortune 500, large corporations, and even hyper growth companies are reallocating or looking at their budgets in 2022 and moving some of the marketing budget towards digital initiatives, kind of brought on by the pandemic and escalated digital first or digital hybrid. And when I read that, that's not, to me, the typical role of marketing. Part of the reason we're having this discussion today. But in that world, going under this theme of marketing being the glue, how do you see a CMO's role changing or being altered as they need to embrace these larger enterprise digital initiatives?
There are two answers to that. One, again, what are those companies? Who are they? Because I'll bet you they're not B2B. And again, that is the vast majority of business out there. It's not sexy. It doesn't make the headlines. They don't write about it. They're much more happy about, the chief marketing officer of Yelp or, and their digital initiatives. Yeah. If you're making something, it's not sexy. You talk about where Internet of Things and edge computing, hot topic, right? You know what the number one application is? It's a camera looking at an end cap display and how long somebody spends time there. It's a microphone listening to a bearing on an oil platform, because if the frequency changes and that bearing burns out, which is a $50 part, it's a $10 million drill head that's going to fail. It's not sexy. Europe is industry 4.0, which you don't even hear about in the US. But that's the business. It's not glamorous or sexy. Internet of Things is just an extension of AIDC and RFID, which has been around for 40 years. So yeah, digital is important. It has its place, but there's still salespeople and relationships. It kind of goes back to, I think about value proposition. A good value prop is an underrated thing these days because of the internet, and people can do so much research. And let's face it, the buyer sees almost everything as equal. Amazon and Walmart wouldn't exist if, crazy TV Lenny's wouldn't exist if were not the case. How do you differentiate? And that's where your sales team and the relationship makes a huge difference. And again, that's for the majority of business. For some, for an Uber, different story. But again, an Uber is a one-trick pony. The other thing of digital, if you can do it, it's very easy to replicate if you apply this to a unicorn. And again, having done 27 unique things, I launched the world's first digital camera at Casio. Okay, cool. But I knew 6 months down the road, the Sony monster was going to launch and they were going to crush me like a bug. So what did I do? I went over and knocked on the Sony's door because I had a factory that made the TFT, the little digital display on the back of the camera. So I cut a deal and say, hey, Sony, how about I make those TFTs for you? And I made more money selling TFTs to Sony than I ever made selling Casio cameras.
Huh.
That, you also have to, it's, being a unicorn is great, but whatever the idea is, trust me, somewhere in the world, somebody is at worst 6 months behind you. They're gonna be there. So how do you, first trick is to, what does people want? Why do they want to buy it? Who wants to sell it? Why? Because if you can't sell it, you're not going to go anywhere. And then, how are you going to distribute it? And if you distribute it, it can be replicated. You're not going to survive long.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is a lot of times when we talk about, Silicon Valley B2B companies, we talk about how to market the product, right? How to get people to know about the product and how to convert these people to sign up. But what I'm hearing from you is a lot of times the marketers' work, especially for enterprise B2B companies, is to think about distribution or think about various ways to expand the business, which not necessarily has to be fall into the box of marketer's job, right? Like a lot of things you were talking about is actually business development, is actually partnership.
If you think about, again, a router is a router is a router, a storage is a storage is a storage. Working at Avnet, which was one of the best business exercises I've ever had. You work for a distie, everybody hated me. Literally, man. And the margins are they talk about basis points, fractions of 1%. And so, but that's why you need billions of something to, buy dinner at the end of the week. And so, if I'm looking to sell one guy's product versus another, if the rep is coming in and buying pizza for us, once a month for everybody in the department, well, guess who we're going to push? Corinna's a really nice person, man. She buys us pizza. That's 99, schmooze marketing. I had one tenure outside of tech, Archer Services, the largest courier and facilities management company. And the sale was not the lawyer, it was to the legal secretary. And so you give emery boards or a ruler or a letter opener, tchotchkes. And you invite the legal administrator to lunch. If Holly is the duck, I'll invite you, Corinna, my customer, and Jay, my customer, and I'll invite you all to lunch. And I'm not doing any selling. I'm going to let you two sell Holly on why it's such a good idea to do business with Bennet. Why? Because you want the free lunches coming along. There's schmooze selling is an art that's gone, becoming a lost art, but it still has a huge place.
Yeah.
And I think most digital marketers never carried a bag and never sold, whereas anybody that's sold understands that.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, yes, coming from having experience with sales, being married to a salesperson, I think people like to buy from people that they like at the end of the day. So even if there are major, especially when you're talking about pretty much apples to apples products and the differentiators are really hard to delineate, right? That's why I do think you still see a little bit, especially in B2B and even in our startup side of the world, direct mail still being a thing. And it's really hard for a digital marketer or for an acquisition marketer to understand the value in schmooze marketing, which is direct mail and swag boxes and things like that, because it's okay, well, we're spending $500 to send this box to somebody who knows if they'll even buy. But at the end of the day, I do fully believe in trying to create that feeling of relationship with the buyer. And I do think marketing can have, a huge impact on that front.
Yeah. And it's interesting, but you always have to find where the other guy isn't. I learned that very early at Casio. Casio was very good, but the job was not making stuff. The job was keeping the factory busy, because Casio made stuff for Panasonic and Sony and Hitachi and everybody else. So it was keeping the factory busy. And it changes your perspective when you have to get someone else to sell. And so, one of the things I looked for was, where is this, mostly Sony, where are they not? Sony focused on Game Boy and stuff for the little boy. Who was selling stuff to the little girl? Okay, the digital sender. It was a stupid little infrared text message thing. You know, I like you, do you like me, across the room.
Huh.
Very useful in a boardroom, by the way. Um, but you go where the other people are not. And again, it helps to have been carrying a bag to appreciate that and find a different way.
And Bennett, you have worked with a lot of turnaround companies and fixing a lot of things. What are some of the most common challenges these companies have?
Not understanding the money and not understanding how the money goes around the table. So I joined, when I came back from China, I had a couple of friends on the board of Earthlink. Are you familiar with them? They're the world's first ISP. It should have been Google.
Huh.
And they didn't. And so I went in there and they were all failed big telco. They were Frontier and Global Crossing, the guys whose pocket I used to pick for years. And first day I went in and I looked at the numbers and I looked at the GM and I said, we're out of business in 32 quarters. He said, yeah. Nobody in the room understood. They were losing 20%, 22% year on year. That is an unbelievable churn. They were literally going out of business. We got a problem, kids. We got to put the fingers in the dike. Okay, how are we going to do that? Okay, well, let's figure out who's going to churn and why. Oh, we don't have any money. They had literally, for $1.5 billion revenue, they had a $3 million marketing budget, and the CMO, good storyteller, never sat on a sales call, never sat with care. Hard to be in a service business and be a CMO and do that. Sorry, sidebar. Let's figure out how we're going to, so they had no money for any software. So, okay, I used Excel and used what I call a 6-box methodology to figure out our customers' propensity to churn. And guess what? Here's a list, and every executive in this company is going to spend 1 day a week, and we're going to dial for dollars. Here's the promotion for this. Here's the promotion for that. Here's the promotion for this. Here's the questions for ask. I don't care if you're the vice president, whatever, we're saving our butt. Called dialing to save your job.
I think
And that's a quality of a CMO, is to be able to take apart a balance sheet. And things like the time value of money.
And in these turnarounds, Bennett, I'm curious. I know you said in the beginning that often it's what are they paying you and what are you going to get? But if you were to move that aside, is there ever been a situation where you don't believe the company is able to turn it around? Like, are there any triggers or levers and pulleys you look for in the business to make that decision or belief that you even have the capability of turning it around or not?
No, no. There is no situation that you can't, again, knock on wood, I've never had a failure. I've been extremely lucky. And I can give lots of examples of that. Better to be lucky than smart. And I definitely am a poster child for that methodology. I think everybody can find a solution to it. You can't always solve the problems. A company's culture is one example. And a lot of high growth, startup situations I've been involved with, that's very often the case. And maybe the CEO, humanizing technologies. The former governor of Indiana had developed basically it was a pixel capture, like Protopage or Netflix or Protopage and Netvines, capture a view. And he thought he had reinvented the internet. And he was churning $320,000 a month. Holy. Okay, let's look at the first thing is get a control of the money. Understand where your budget, where the money's being spent. And within the first month, I was able to cut the burn down to about $125,000 a month without getting rid of anybody, without laying people off. We don't need to be on 2 floors of an office building. Let's all condense into one and let's lease out the other floor. I mean, stuff like that. That's job one. The other is, okay, convince them, George, you haven't reinvented, you've been in business 7 years and you have no customers. But you've got this thing that does something very cool. You've got this local search capability. I know somebody over at Google that might want that. I know somebody at Microsoft that could use. I know somebody at Time Warner that could. You make a couple of phone calls, and now he's making $2 million a month by busting up the technology. So, you know, there's a lot of different business. Business is about pulling levers, the levers of business. And once you understand that, it's a lot easier to figure out how you can make adjustments, one, to increase profitability, but also to fix it. That makes sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And these levers, is this kind of a thing where you just learned by being thrown into the deep end and by example? Did you learn it in school? Did you get a mentor? I mean, how do you go about learning these levers to scale massive companies?
Hard knocks and good luck.
Okay.
So my first job, well, all right, my first job was selling radio advertising, and then I was, as I slip into Radio E, I was the afternoon drive time DJ. So the first real job after college was at an interconnect, a very large labor subcontractor, 700 techs. And it was a time when we had riots in Los Angeles. And they were literally burning data centers to the ground. And all the guys I worked with were men in their late 50s and 60s, ex-AT&T guys. Okay. And they're like, yeah, okay, let's get a cup of coffee and go put that up. Oh, that's how we respond to a crisis. So years later, when I'm at British Telecom and the IRA are threatening my data centers in the UK, it's like, yeah, okay. It just, you learn that, you know, the value of data. I had the good fortune, the first day on my job at Infonet, I had a meeting with the CFO and a guy that was going to be working for me. And he was talking about his global fixed price strategy. He had 2 little pieces of paper. He had an artificial hand. He was 63.
Okay.
And he was talking, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, my heart's pounding. It's like, oh my God, they're going to fire me. I'm an absolute fraud. I got to manage this guy. Holy moly. Yeah. And so an hour into it, we take a break and he leaves the room and the CFO turns to me, you know, a stereotype New York finance guy. He says, oh, you know, this is my 3rd time through it. I'm starting to get it. It's like, oh, he's exceptional. It's like, oh yeah. He was an old-fashioned quant, a qualitative analyst. Okay. And I mean, he could figure out and model any business strategy that you could think of and tell you whether or not you make money. He'd get pissed off if they're and find the math errors in Intel chipsets. He'd get pissed and write Intel. A-type person. And so after the meeting, we went back to my office and he said, well, you know, what do you think? And I said, well, it's real interesting, Ted. Tell me, what would be the impact if I gave a discount term time value of money? I hadn't thought of that. Well, and he came back in a half an hour with a tiny little graph with 2 lines and a whole bunch of little numbers. And he said, you know, I don't think we're going to get hurt because my ability to buy bandwidth depreciates faster than your ability, than your proposed discount. Let's down talk. You know, and he became a mentor, even though he was working for me. And that's another quality that I think becoming a CMO, becoming a grand poobah, is listening to those around you, listening to your own gut, listening to your family. You have to be humble, listening to valuing your network of friends, and bouncing ideas off of people. You know, I launched my video phone at Casio. I was hired to launch the LT70P video phone, and I sent one to the CEO. He used it once and never again. I sent it to my mother-in-law, used it once, wouldn't use it again. Oh, I think I've got a problem here. eating your own dog food. And again, not enough people, not enough marketers do that. Not enough marketers secret shop their own organization.
And a lot of people listening to our sessions are aspiring CMOs. What have you observed the difference, the characteristics that differentiates let's say, a director of marketing to a VP of marketing to a CMO? And what are some of the career advices of someone who aspire to be a CMO you want to give them?
That's a great question. Get as much experience as you can at every level that you can. And at the same time, be humble. The best thing in marketing, now I can do a few things fairly well. Data is one of them. I've got 25 patents and, the Hadoop ecosystem. I've done, over 100 large big data projects. But if I go into a room with a data scientist, guess what? I get like so blown in California, like for sure, in a heartbeat. You want to treat others the way you would a university professor. Because even if you are a PH friggin' D, there's always somebody in the room smarter than you. And so but you get everything you want, especially with engineers. If you approach them and ask questions and they teach you something, they will open up the playbook and give you everything. And that's a huge component. Going to every department, again, it was bad for me, Infonet. If you wanted to launch a new product at Infonet, you had to pass the Tiger team, which was literally 11 women. Customer care, service, legal, all the little people. Yeah, I'm the grand poobah. I got held up the longest of anybody in the history of the company for one of my products. I even bought them milk and cookies to one meeting and found out half of them were lactose intolerant. I mean, I failed it in every way imaginable, but it taught me to go and socialize an idea, talk to people before you get to launch. I developed an entire methodology of sending a launch pricing. Here's the whole program, 90 days before the launch to everybody in the world, every country manager in the world. What do you think? Give me feedback. Okay, here's an update on it at 45 days. Okay, here's the 15-day. We're going to be going live. It's been tested, yada, yada, yada. And that became the boilerplate of launching. You need to, the other thing is managing your time and multiple categories, multiple product lines. That's the distinction, I think, between a director and a VP level. Mm-hmm. Typically a product marketer, product management reports into product marketing. Product marketing reports into a director, which has numerous product lines. Directors report into vice presidents that become category managers. And that then reports into a grand poobah type. And again, at each level, you need to empower and trust. You need to understand what they're doing and communicate at every level. And that's, I think, the successful VP or whatever, do they go talk to the lowliest engineer, the lowest, guy pulling cable, in the mud, in a manhole? You got to understand the business you're dealing with. Every aspect. Because again, marketing is not about revenue, it's about profit. And so again, those levers of business, what can I change? It's not only sales and marketing and the promotion and campaign, it's can I do something in my distribution to improve it and make it more efficient? That'll actually have a bigger impact on my bottom line than any promotion that I could do.
What would you say to a business owner if you were to bring that same phrase that you just said, that it's not just about the campaigns or the selling or this and that, it's also the arms of distribution and it's the operational side of it? What would you say to some of the leaders of businesses that might shoot back and say, well, this is exclusive for operations or business development, marketing doesn't get involved here?
I would say that marketing in my definition is the glue between every organization and the business. You cannot be a good marketing team if you don't understand everything in the business. You know, my wife, again, a better example, working in food, she was out on the line, you know, when Ready Pack, the salad in the bag, she'd go out on the line. When she launched fresh food segments, she was with the women and men, mostly women, cutting segments of the oranges. Well, how many oranges can you do in an hour? You can't do a pricing if you don't understand that, if you can't see what the impacts are. That's the big difference, I think, between a product marketer and a you know, who has to do all of that and profit and do the PR fun fluffy stuff. So if you want to be a VP of something, you got that's why I said that iceberg, most of the work is under the waterline.
Awesome. All right, Bennet. Well, we are close to time, and so gonna wrap up here. I really, really appreciate you joining us and kind of sharing your story and just all of the insight. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Jay, for jumping on, and we will see everyone next week at the same time.
Thanks so much, Bennet.
Thank you so much.
Fun, guys.
Take care.